All right, everybody, welcome to the very first ever Corona Geek Hangout. This is going to be a weekly show where we're going to talk everything about Corona SDK and mobile development. I am Charles McKeever, and I am joined here with Brian Burton. Brian is a educator, author, ninja, Corona guru, whatever you want to call. And then we've got Toff Ward. Toff has got the Silly Hat Award for the day. He's a developer.
Absolutely.
He's a developer, a fellow geek, and a big gnome hunter. So thanks, guys, for being on with us today. Now, like I said before, this is going to be a weekly show. We're going to talk everything about Corona SDK and stuff that's related to mobile development. So we're going to talk about devices. We're going to talk about you know, things related to the industry. And if you're not familiar with what the Corona SDK is, it's basically a cross-platform development toolkit for mobile development. And basically what that means is that it makes it easy for developers to create native applications for Android, iOS, Kindle, Nook, you name it, and I think even Windows phones. And so if you're not familiar with that, you're definitely going to want to go over to the coronalabs.com website and check that out, because they are hard at work over there. They're the creators of the SDK, and you can find all the information about that over on their site. So with that said, Chris, tell us what we're going to talk about. What's on the agenda for today?
Okay. Well, obviously, we're going to start off with the Corona's latest build. Always good notes to know, because if you're not using the latest build, it's good to know what's at least there. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between the standard versus the enterprise edition. So that's always good to know. Then we got some blog highlights from Corona and a little bit about device news that we're going to talk about, because there's tons of new devices. So we're going to try to focus on one or two of those as we go through. And then we're going to spotlight something from the Corona SDK, in this case, table views. So with that being said, somebody want to jump in and tell us about the latest build for Corona?
Oh, I will. Yeah, I went out and looked at the latest build just to see, and that was apparently released on August 20th. So if you haven't downloaded the latest build, you might want to go check out the release notes for that. I know some people don't necessarily like to do the latest and greatest because it could introduce additional factors into their application. They might be a certain way through a project and feel they don't need any other issues. But it's always a good idea to go check the release notes, because they may have addressed an issue that you're having. It looks like as of, what is it? And Brian, tell me, how do they refer to the release notes? Do you know? Do they use the whole thing, or they just the last three digits, or what's the common practice?
I think it's just the last three digits for release notes.
Okay, so as of 882 through 883, it says here that they fixed some bugs that were related to native text field, and that was happening on the Android 4.1 Jelly Bean devices. So if you're having problems with that, you want to go check that out. And Jelly Bean devices are what? I mean, Jelly Bean's been out a month now or so? So if you're developing...
That's pretty cutting edge technology if you're already building for that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're at it, and that's the way the whole thing is. I mean, the daily build is really for the developers who want to do the cutting edge stuff. So if you go to, I mean, I don't know if you know this or not, if you're watching, you can go to the coronalabs.com and you can download the Corona SDK and use it, play with it for free. But if you want the latest and greatest that they have for the daily builds, then you have to become a developer, and you can get that. And a good example of that is when they first came out with being able to publish to the Kindle Fire and stuff like that. That was added to the SDK. Well, eventually it was rolled out to everybody else, but if you wanted it in advance, as a daily build, you had to be a developer, so a paid developer. So that's one of the perks of that. So, and it also looks like in their release notes they've got some memory leak issues. They addressed some memory leak issues for the Mac simulator. So I was probably about 3 or 4 entries in the release notes about that alone. So if you're having issues with that or curious about that, you can go check that out as part of the latest and greatest daily build. All right, that's all I have really to share about that. Anybody else release notes? Any kind of
Memory leaks suck.
yeah. In general, yes. Yes, in general they do. Hey, so what's the? I haven't used the Mac simulator. Anybody?
Oh, I got that one. No, actually, I say I got that one. Technically, I have not used the Enterprise Edition because I think one of the best things you can do with the Enterprise Edition, moving up from the regular SDK, is that it allows you to pull over your native Objective-C or Java that maybe you have from whatever you're doing, like Android. Well, if you've already got those things and you've already done some development and you want to move to Corona, well, you don't lose any of that because you can actually wrap it in like a custom Lua and use that in Corona. So consequently, when I saw that, it was like, oh, that's awesome, because that makes it easier to move to Corona because you've already got something. You don't want to lose it. I just want to upgrade what I've got, so you can move it over by essentially accessing all of your existing Objective-C. Make sense?
I think so.
Yeah. Let's give an example on that. Let's say you're running into the issue of you've created a great app for your Android device or for your iPhone or tablet. Let's say charting. You've got a chart maker, and you need it for your business app. So why reinvent the wheel? Why recode that whole thing in Lua? Let's wrap that in Lua, keep your Objective-C or your JavaScript, and pull it over. It just simply makes life so much easier for being able to do anything. I've just started playing with the Enterprise Edition, and it's sweet. It's a lot of fun.
So let's back up just for a second for anybody who doesn't know exactly what their Enterprise Edition is. I guess with what we'll call the Standard Edition, you can develop mobile apps using the Lua language, which is Lua's been used for World of Warcraft and a bunch of other different apps. But the Enterprise Edition does what? What does it allow you to do in it beyond the standard?
Well, that is the key, is that it's allowing you to pull in that native information.
Okay.
The Android, there's tons of already made bits of code out there that address all kinds of different issues. Connectivity, interfacing to specific tools on the web. Maybe you need to hook to an Oracle server or Microsoft server or something like that to pull data in through SQL. They've already built the code to do that. So if you can encapsulate that on your enterprise, it just simply makes life so much easier.
So I've done .NET development before. So basically what we're saying is that third-party there's existing bases of code, but let's say that a third-party developer wants to create a whole library in native code, then they can provide that to a Corona developer who could then hook into that and completely extend their app and never have to not have to write that other piece of functionality. It's all provided by some third-party developer.
Right.
Okay.
The heavy lifting's already been done. You just simply need to encapsulate it and compile, and you're ready to go. And we should make clear that when you're pulling something in like that, you're only pulling it in for one type of device.
Okay.
You cannot. Right now, the Enterprise is only available on the Macintosh. It's not available on the PC yet. And when you're building, if you're pulling in some Java, as I understand it, if I'm pulling in Java to build it for an Android device, I can't use that same code for an iOS device. I can't put it on an iPad.
That would make sense, though, because Corona, the beauty of Corona is that behind the scenes, they write all the code to make everything cross-platform. So if you've just taken and stuck a very specific platform piece of code, library, into your project, well, now you've excluded somebody else, right? So now you've pigeonholed that application to this particular functionality or platform.
With great power comes great responsibility. So.
Awesome. I'm glad we got that in there someplace. So what the Mac simulator then is that? What's the Mac simulator? Does anybody know?
That's your simulator running on your Macintosh. The Corona simulator.
Oh, so it's okay.
It's just
okay. Okay. See. I was confusing that with they haven't come out with Mac apps yet, have they?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
There's been talk of it coming
yeah.
in the future, but it's not been released yet.
Yeah, I'm not trying to imply that they're actually working on it because I don't know if they are or not. But I've seen rumors go around or requests say, hey, it'd be great if we could make Mac apps as well using the Corona SDK. So I wasn't sure if that was the same thing or if we were talking about something different. It sounds like we're talking about something different. Okay, so the Mac simulator.
Yeah, we're talking about something different.
Okay, so the Mac simulator really is the Corona simulator.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
If we're talking Mac simulator, which that's something that if you have a chance to go to one of the meetups and talk to Walter or David or somebody like that is really presenting at the highest level of the Corona organization, then you will see a hint of what's coming, and that's been something they've hinted at a couple of the meetups.
I love the random hat switching there, just by the way.
You act like it's random. See, it's the transition because we're going from one section to the next. So you put on a different hat and it all blends together.
There's a plan.
There is a plan.
Well, I wouldn't really call it a plan. I'm not necessarily one of those really organized people. I just kind of throw code up there and it works out that way.
He sees what sticks. Okay, well then, yeah. With that, let's go ahead and we'll put a link to the enterprise information in the show notes. So wherever you're watching this, listening to this, whatever, check out the link for that, and go read more about the enterprise because it sounds like a really cool feature. If we can, if you could use it, I at the moment don't have a use for it. I'm still trying to get my feet wet on Corona at large, so I don't even want to take the training wheels off just yet. All right, so let's talk.
Corona is a very deep lake.
It is. It's a very like you said before. Great power comes with great responsibility. It does have a lot of features that you can get started with right out of the gate. But yeah, the rabbit hole goes deep. So you can't just rip the training wheels off day one. I mean, I've seen all these articles about my 7-year-old made an app, which is great, but your 7-year-old is smarter than I am because I'm still working on it. So anyway, but with that said, let's move over to the blog highlights. So as you may know, Corona Labs, coronalabs.com, they have a blog there. They've got all kind of tutorials there, and we try to keep up with what's going on there so we can highlight it here. So today's topic, when we get to the SDK Spotlight, or actually no, it's not, is it? Table views is our topic for today. But anyway, so the Corona, I was going to go someplace else. And on the blog, they featured a story about the storyboard basics, and I thought we were going to talk about that today. I thought we were going to talk about that today.
As opposed to director, yeah.
Was I? How did I get table views up there?
I have no idea, but I was being nice and mentioned that.
Well, anyway, okay. So in just a moment, we're going to talk about the director class versus storyboard. What am I thinking about?
Correct.
Man, I am totally confused. I'm sorry. So anyway, yeah, in a moment, we're going to talk about storyboard basics versus the director class because one's a legacy piece and one's not. And on the Corona blog, this is where I was going, they talked just the other day about storyboard basics. So I guess we could go ahead and just kind of, you want to highlight that? Anybody got any thoughts?
Well, it comes down to
Help!
Storyboard is the storyboard is the approved Corona Labs transitioning tool to be able to transition from one view to another view. It handles everything. Now, we were all using Director. That anybody who's been playing with Corona for any length of time, Director came out. It was developed by a member of the community, made free. Everybody used it for quite some time, but it created the problem of Corona Labs couldn't support it.
Okay.
If there were changes to the engine, it could break Director. That created all kinds of problems, so they couldn't really support it. So they came up with their own. and they did a very nice job. I mean, if you've looked at some of the basics that are included as part of the storyboard, it's got an incredible amount of power for creating each of these different scenes. You can load your scene, you can display the scene, you can purge the scene, you can remove the scene. It depends on what you're building. So it's really created a real nice tool set. And I think that possibly in a future broadcast, maybe we'll want to go a little bit deeper into storyboarding and the basics of using it.
Okay, yeah, exactly. And my whole point for putting it on today's topic was really just, like you said just a moment ago, is to highlight the fact that there's an official API for transitions and scene management versus Director, which is this community-created legacy library that when you go and look at a lot of the documentation is still referenced here or there. I mean, even in the Storyboard Basics blog post, the tutorial on Corona Labs blog, they still link to Director. I guess mainly because so many people still have it in their projects or whatnot. Is that kind of why you think they do that?
Well, think about it. If you've been using Director for a while and you've already published some applications, well, now you're talking about the transitioning from one set of code to another set, or do you just rebuild everything? And so a lot of people are trying to go between the two to transition over to Storyboard, even though I've got all this code in Director class.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And Storyboard's still fairly new. It wasn't out soon enough for me to include it in my book, so I went with Director for scene management inside the book.
Okay, yeah.
It's mentioned several places in it.
Right. Yeah, which I know that's a for newbies like me, that's something that becomes a question. Which one should I use? And it sounds like Storyboard API is definitely the one that you should go with, right?
Yeah, if you're starting a new app, go with Storyboard. If you're supporting an app, well, Director's still out there, and it's still alive and well.
Do you know if the developer still maintains it, keeps it up?
I haven't checked.
Okay.
I haven't checked.
Okay, I know I went to the link in the blog post, and it said like August of last year, 2011 or something was the last time that was updated. So I wasn't sure if they were sort of just officially killing it or just leaving it out there for legacy purposes or what.
When you've done something perfect.
Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble.
Be humble, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think we should definitely do an in-depth on Storyboard API, though. Focus in on that on a future show, just to give people a good idea of all the different bits and pieces of how it works and stuff like that. Because I know I'm like I said, I'm a brand new Corona developer, and I could benefit from a session like that as well. So let's talk about other news. So that's kind of the Corona SDK spotlight piece, looking at the API and stuff. But let's talk about let's move out a little broader and talk about device news, things that are happening in the world at large. So I think one of the biggest things that's going on right now.
Sorry, that was going to really annoy me.
Some disassembly required. This is the iPhone 5. iPhone 5 is whatever they're going to call it, iPhone 5, big long iPhone, I don't know. It's coming out, and the screen size is going to be what, another half inch or so larger than what it is today. I
think it's going to be 4S Plus.
It's what? The 4S Plus. Brian,
or plus.
Brian, what were you going to say?
Well, the reading that I had done about the iPhone 5 was that it's primarily going to be the screen will be a little taller.
Okay.
But you're not necessarily gaining any more width, which, let's face it, if it got wider, when does it stop becoming a phone and become a mini iPad?
Yeah, I agree. And so that, to me, that brings up the question then, how is that going to affect Corona developers? If the screen gets longer, how does that affect them? Any thoughts on that?
Well, that's a really good question. Obviously, you're going to be running into you're going to be running into instances where that extra half inch, while it's incredibly valuable, and if you're making a game, that extra half inch could be really wonderful. But as you're developing it, you're definitely going to need to be looking at what kind of device is it deploying to, so that you can take the different resolutions into account.
Okay. Now I know today, just to recap for anybody who may not be aware of this, may be new to Corona, is that you have you can package multiple assets with your application, and Corona will automatically figure out which one of those it's supposed to display. So so an example of that is if you're on an original, let's say a 3S, like a iPhone 3, and then you move to like a 4 or 4S, your pixel density is greater, right? I mean, your resolution's higher, so therefore you have two sets of icons, one being a lower resolution and one being a higher resolution, and Corona just sort of automatically figures out which one you should show based on what device you're on. Is that
Yes.
Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
So my question, I wonder, is Corona also going to be able to help you with that when the device gets longer? Because I know it does that sort of thing for the Android devices. Android's got a variety of different sizes, and it kind of handles everything. So is that more Corona, or is that more the developer figuring out what dimensions that they should work with?
It's going to be a combination of both. But the fact that we can tell the Corona engine what resolution we want to work at when we're creating our app, it really does simplify the whole thing.
Okay.
So that it'll automatically deploy correctly if we've set that resolution.
Okay, so
if I want to go 320 by 200, it's going to be 320 by 200.
Okay, so Corona can do some of the lifting when it comes to assets and things like that, but as far as screen dimension, you're still going to have to take into account.
Yeah, if you're wanting to get fancy and take full advantage of that additional space that's available to you, then you're going to have to code for it.
Okay. So what I would imagine then, if you were existing apps, then would just sort of maybe cut off each end of the ham. So you'd have like a reverse, what do you call that, letterbox? Instead of being this way, it would be this way, and then and then the ends of it, you just have these black spaces on each end, I guess. I mean, that's not necessarily native to Corona or anything like that. I'm assuming that every app that doesn't fit on a iOS device will probably, Apple will probably figure out, put your application right in the middle of the screen or something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you got like everything's down here.
Right.
Everything's shifted to the left, and you're playing a video game like one thumb's longer than the other. Okay.
And of course, this is all conjecture until somebody gets an iPhone 5 in their hand and can play with it. So.
Oh yeah, it's definitely all rumor. I mean, at this point, but I mean, I don't know, it's some significant rumor. Just as an aside, there's been a whole lot more news about the iPhone than there has been about the iPad Mini. So if there's any chance that there's going to be a new iPhone, it's pretty good. If there's any chance there's going to be an iPad Mini, it's anybody's guess, I think, really. Nobody really knows. I would love to have one personally. I would love to have one. I love my iPad. So that's just hey.
Yeah.
So if you want to send me an iPad Mini, I'll put my address in the show notes. All right. Well, that's kind of what
Apple. You'd make friends of life for all of us if you send us all little minis.
That's right. That's right. I will sing your praises.
And none of us are paid employees of Apple or Google, just so that we don't get ever summoned for court documents down the road.
Oh yeah, I paid for everything that I have. So every
yes.
Technically not an employee of anybody, so it's just not an issue.
Well said with that hat on. I love it. All right, well that's pretty much it, I think, for today. Anybody got any closing thoughts? Anything that they want to share before we close out for today?
Actually, yeah. Because this is a new show, and
Yes.
because we're looking at pretty much everything about the Corona. If somebody's got a specific question about screen resolution. How do I center it, and how do I account for the difference between Nexus, Droid, iPhone, iPod, all of those good stuff. Feel free to email, text. I mean, good Lord, we're online everywhere. You can find any one of us, send us a question, and we'll just pop it into the next show. Because, I mean, all of this stuff is kind of being developed and looked up and figured out on the fly because all of this is new. I mean, I remember a long time ago somebody was like, well, I want to know how long you've been, what was it? Oh, I remember when .NET first came out. And somebody was saying, well, we're looking for somebody with 10 years worth of .NET experience. What?
Good luck with that.
And then they did the same thing with Java. Oh, we need 10 years Java experience. Dude, it's only been out for
You're right.
X amount of time. You can't have more experience than that. So same thing with Corona. Corona hasn't been here forever, so everybody's learning as we go along, and there's lots of really cool, neat things out there that they're so cool they eventually get rolled into Corona. I mean, it's like storyboard. So if you got any questions, send them to us, and we'll throw it in the next show.
Yep, we've set up this again. This is a community supported show. I mean, this is not. We're not officially associated with Corona Labs or Google or Apple or anybody. So so it's all us. So yeah, definitely send us your recommendations. And we've set up a website, coronageek.com. You can check out more news and information related to mobile development and the Corona SDK there. And you can look us up on any one of the social media outlets as Corona Geek. So we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. And of course, I'm glad when Google Plus gets their vanity URLs worked out. But if you search for Google for Corona Geek, you should be able to find us on Google Plus. So wherever you're listening or watching this, check the show notes. We'll have all that information there. And if you have a question that you want to send us, you can email that to us, questions@coronageek.com, and we'll try to get it on the show. All right. Anything else? Is that it?
I'm good.
Is that it for this week? Okay, join us next week. We're going to be back here, I think, Monday at 2 p.m. Monday at 2 p.m. Central Time. So set your clock and put it on the calendar and join us, and you can ask questions live on the show. All right?
And if you liked what you saw, be sure to like us on Facebook.
Like us.
Like us on Facebook, yes.
That's right. Yeah, and like I said, we will put links to all the things that we talked about in today's show in the show notes. Be sure to check for those. All right, Brian, Chris, thanks for being here today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.